name is Jessica McGee, and I am a working artist, and I've been asked to speak a little bit about what that means. How did I get to make art my actual job? So it is a long story, lots of ups and downs, so I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible. I started my art career as a painter. I have been a painter for years. When I was a little kid, I would draw a lot. I was actively discouraged by my family from becoming an artist. They were very Southern and very old-fashioned, and they wanted me to become a doctor, a lawyer, or to marry a rich man. Art was not a thing that they thought I could support myself with. And so for a really long time, I also did not believe that. When I was in my 20s, I was bartending, and my boss asked me to paint him something in the style of Picasso. So I gave it a try. I ended up having an entire art show based off of the one painting that he wanted me to paint. Did lots of stuff in the style of Picasso, I guess, and that really got me started on my art path as a painter. But it was always a part-time thing. So I would have like one art show a year, and my art shows did really well, but I still needed to support myself, like waiting tables or bartending. Through my years as an artist, I've often talked to people who went to school for art, and I always ask them, like, do you learn about business, like in your art classes? Like, I know people who are getting their master's in fine art, and I'm like, do they talk about business? And almost across the board, they tell me no, they don't talk about business, the business of art. And local artists who I've asked who I felt like had some success, I've asked them about, like, how do you succeed in business as an artist? And what I was told repeatedly was, well, you should take a class from another well-known artist. Like, there was just no really good advice given. And so I really struggled with how do I make it as an artist, especially because as a painter, my paintings were deeply rooted in my emotions. And specifically when I was like having a hard time, I created some of my best paintings. But the reality is I'm not always having a hard time, and so I'm not always inspired to paint these paintings that sell. Sometimes I want to paint really happy things, and for some reason my deeply emotional work connects with people more than the random happy stuff that I paint. So I really struggled with making art a full-time thing. But I was also a jewelry maker. I've made jewelry for years, but I never considered jewelry an art form. I just considered it like a hobby that I sometimes made money off of. Anyway, fast forward to 2017 or 2018, I think. I was doing a lot of murals, and I kind of stumbled into murals by accident. I really didn't know how to do a mural, so I did a lot of research about like what kind of paint to use, and thankfully I have no fear of heights, so I ended up getting some pretty big murals, like 2- and 3-story building murals. So I started doing that. That was fun, but also still part-time. In my mural work, I did a mural of a sea turtle. I decided I wanted to see sea turtles in real life, so I sent myself to Costa Rica on a sea turtle conservation trip. And while I was there, I experienced my first plastic beach, which I've seen tons of viral videos and viral news stories about plastic beaches, but I've never experienced one. So I was on this beach at the same time hundreds of thousands of sea turtles were nesting, and this is a magical experience. But also, there's so much garbage on the beach. So it was my first time being on a garbage beach, but also the first time seeing nature interact with all of this garbage. And so I knew that I needed to change the way that I made art. So I ended up taking a bunch of the garbage home with me. I like jammed a bunch of it into a 2-liter soda bottle, brought it home, and started building sculptures, which I never considered myself a sculptor. But yeah, started building sculptures. Schools started asking me to speak to kids about my experience and the work that I was making. And then I wondered if I could do what I was doing with plastic and sculptures, if I could somehow incorporate that into jewelry. because I knew that I could sell jewelry, and the sculptures were like very well received, but they weren't really making me any money. So I started to treat jewelry like an art form, and then I realized jewelry is an art form. So lots of experimenting with manipulation of materials and the layering of colors, because I'm working specifically with garbage to make my jewelry. And so there's not a lot of people who do what I do. There are people who use reclaimed materials for jewelry, but not a lot of people who do it in the way that I do. And I truly believe that it is an art form. And so that allows me to tell stories about my work. And people love a story. It's why the paintings that I made when I was having a really hard time were so well received, because there's a story. People love stories. And my jewelry now has a story, but it's also an art form. And so I still make sculptures. I still paint. I still make art pieces, but jewelry is my bread and butter, but that is still art. So that's how I make my living as an artist. There's a lot of marketing involved. I use social media heavily. I have an email list. I have my own website. I have a couple people that I hired. I very much make a part-time income right now, but that is because I have elected to put most of the money that I make back into my business. And I'm married, and so my husband and I are able to split the bills. If I wasn't married, I would probably be working out of my home instead of a studio, and I would probably maybe not have employees, or maybe just have one employee. Like, I would have to make adjustments. I could be a full-time, fully self-supporting artist if I wanted to, the way my career is going now. But because I have a really supportive partner, I have elected to really put the money back into the business and grow my business. So yeah, there are probably so many more things that I could tell you about how I have gone from being a very, very part-time artist who was waiting tables to pay the bills to being a very, very full-time artist who now relies on my art to pay the bills. But it's been many, many, many years in the making and many lessons learned. So I guess I will say, feel free to ask me questions. I would love to talk to you about this. I talk about it a lot. I write about it. Yeah, good luck. Pursue art. I think it matters. I think art is so important, and there is a path to a career there. It's just a little more unconventional, I think, than so many of us learned, because I learned you make paintings and that's how you get to be an artist, and you only find success when you die. And that's just not true. I make jewelry and art out of garbage, and I make a living. So if I can do that, there's so many other pathways to making a career out of being an artist. Yeah, thanks for listening. I wish you the best of luck on your art journey.